Hi, I'm Olivia Bennett, and I'm 31 years old. I always believed that family was supposed to be your safest place, the one group of people who would love you no matter what. But I was wrong. For years, I lived as the forgotten daughter, constantly compared to my successful older brother, and treated like I could never measure up. Every achievement I earned was ignored, while his smallest success was celebrated like a national holiday. I spent my entire life trying to win my parents' approval, believing that if I worked harder and loved them enough, things would eventually change. Then one rainy Sunday afternoon, I discovered a secret hidden in my parents' attic, a secret they had kept from me for more than 20 years. Inside an old wooden box were dozens of letters that were never meant to stay hidden. As I read the first page, my hands began to shake, and the truth I uncovered shattered everything I thought I knew about my family. By the time I reached the final letter, I realized that the people I trusted most had betrayed me in a way I could never have imagined. But what happened next changed my life forever. And when my parents finally faced the consequences of their actions, no one in the room was prepared for what came next. My name is Olivia Bennett, and I am 31 years old. The moment my life changed forever happened on a rainy Sunday afternoon. I was standing in my parents' living room, holding a cup of coffee, when my older brother Ethan looked at me and said something that made my heart stop. "You were never supposed to know the truth." The room became silent. My mother quickly looked away. My father tightened his jaw. Everyone suddenly seemed interested in anything except looking at me. In that moment, I realized that the family I had trusted my entire life had been hiding something from me for years. But before I tell you what happened next, let me explain how I got there. For the last 8 years, I had worked as a social worker in Chicago. It wasn't glamorous work. There were no expensive offices or impressive job titles. My days were spent helping struggling families, protecting vulnerable children, and guiding people through some of the darkest moments of their lives. It was difficult work, but I loved it. Every day reminded me that kindness mattered. One afternoon, I spent hours helping a single father named Daniel, who was trying desperately to keep custody of his two young daughters. He worked long hours as a mechanic and barely earned enough to survive, but his love for those girls was undeniable. When the court finally approved his case, he cried in my office. "Thank you," he whispered. "You gave my family a chance." Moments like that made every challenge worthwhile. I lived in a small apartment downtown with my golden retriever, Max. My life wasn't luxurious, but it was peaceful. I had good friends, meaningful work, and a boyfriend named Ryan who loved me exactly as I was. Ryan was an architect. He was thoughtful, patient, and kind. He never cared about status or money. He cared about people. Unfortunately, my family did not. My mother, Victoria Bennett, believed success was measured by wealth, prestige, and appearances. She spent most of her time attending charity galas, country club events, and social gatherings where everyone competed to appear more successful than everyone else. To her, I was an embarrassment. My older brother Ethan was her pride and joy. He owned a successful investment company and lived in a massive house in the suburbs with his wife, Claire. Their social media accounts looked like luxury magazines. Every vacation was exotic. Every dinner was expensive. Every photograph was perfectly staged. My parents adored them. Whenever family gatherings happened, Ethan's achievements dominated every conversation. If he bought a new car, everyone celebrated. If Claire redecorated a room, everyone admired it. If I mentioned helping a struggling family stay together, the conversation usually ended within seconds. The favoritism wasn't subtle. It was constant. One Christmas, Ethan announced that his company had reached a major financial milestone. My father stood up and gave a long speech about ambition and success. Everyone applauded. Later that same evening, I quietly shared that I had received an award from the city for outstanding community service. My mother smiled politely and changed the subject. That was my role in the family. I was tolerated, not celebrated. The years passed, and the divide grew wider. When Ethan wanted help buying a vacation property, my parents contributed a substantial amount without hesitation. When I struggled to pay for graduate school, I was told that financial responsibility builds character. The contradiction hurt, not because I wanted their money, because I wanted equal treatment. The worst moment happened at my father's 70th birthday party. The event was held at an expensive country club. Everyone arrived wearing designer clothing and expensive jewelry. I wore a simple navy dress. As soon as I walked into the ballroom, Claire looked me up and down. "That's an interesting choice," she said with a smile. Several people laughed softly. My mother noticed immediately. "You always dress so practical," she added. The way she said practical made it sound like an insult. I smiled and ignored it. But inside, I felt humiliated. My father stood nearby and said nothing. As always, months later, Ryan proposed. It was a beautiful evening by the lake. I said yes immediately. I was happier than I had ever been. When I called my parents to share the news, their reaction surprised me. My mother sounded disappointed. "Are you sure?" she asked. "Ryan is nice, but don't you think you could do better financially?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. The man I loved was being judged solely by his income. That conversation changed something inside me. For the first time, I stopped chasing their approval. I stopped trying to prove my worth. I began focusing on the people who genuinely loved me. Ryan's family welcomed me with open arms. His parents treated me like a daughter. His sisters invited me to family dinners. They listened when I spoke. They cared about my life. Being around them made me realize how unhealthy my own family dynamic had become. Then came the rainy Sunday that changed everything. I had driven to my parents' house to discuss wedding plans. While searching for old family photos in the attic, I discovered a locked wooden box hidden behind several storage containers. The key was taped underneath. Curious, I opened it. Inside were dozens of letters. Every single one was addressed to me. The earliest was dated 22 years earlier. My hands trembled as I opened the first envelope. The letter was from a woman named Sarah Morgan. The words blurred as tears filled my eyes. Sarah wasn't a stranger. She was my biological mother. I learned the truth over the next several hours. My parents were not my biological parents. I had been adopted after Sarah passed away from a serious illness. She had written dozens of letters for me before she died. Letters for birthdays. Letters for graduations. Letters for important life moments. My adoptive parents had hidden every single one. For 22 years. When I confronted them downstairs, nobody denied it. My mother simply crossed her arms. We thought it was best. Best for who? Certainly not for me. The truth came out slowly. They had always feared that if I learned about my biological mother, I would love her more than them. So they buried the evidence. They erased an entire part of my identity. That betrayal hurt more than all the years of favoritism combined. For weeks, I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. I couldn't understand how parents could hide something so important. Then Ryan did something extraordinary. He helped me read every letter. Together. One by one. Sarah's words filled the missing pieces of my life. She wrote about how much she loved me. She described my first smile, my first steps, her hopes for my future. By the final letter, I was crying uncontrollably. For the first time in my life, I felt truly seen. Months later, my wedding day arrived. My parents expected their usual place of honor, but I had made a different decision. Before the ceremony began, I placed a framed photograph on the front row. It was the only picture I had of Sarah. Beside it was a small card. The card read, "To the mother who loved me enough to leave her heart behind in letters. Today, you are here with me." The guests noticed immediately. So did my parents. For the first time, they understood the consequences of their choices. The ceremony was beautiful. Ryan and I exchanged vows, surrounded by people who genuinely loved us. When I walked down the aisle, I wasn't carrying anger anymore. I was carrying freedom. After the wedding, my parents tried repeatedly to repair the relationship. But trust takes years to build and only moments to destroy. I forgave them eventually. Not because they deserved it, because I deserved peace. Today, I still keep Sarah's letters in a special wooden box beside my bed. Whenever life becomes difficult, I read them again. They remind me of something important. Your worth is not determined by the people who fail to see it. Sometimes, the family who truly loves you is not the one that shares your blood. It's the one that sees your heart and chooses you every single day.